Hey everybody, welcome back to Food for Thought, Thoughts If It Were You, a Dark Cancer production, Season 3. It's your host, Gentrics. If you missed out on our last discussion over on the Wisdom app channel, this is a rehashing of that. I'm going to go ahead and add it to this. You're going to get the chance to listen to it. If you got any comments, concerns, or things you want me to talk about later, feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. I thank you guys all for listening, and have a great rest of your day. Now let's begin this chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's your boy, Dark Cancer. I haven't been here in a while, guys, but I figured I'd come back and give y'all a dosing of what I'm about and what's going on in my life. So let's see, what's going on with you guys. I'm open to topics of discussion as to whatever anyone has to say. If anyone has any topics they want to discuss, I'm open to that. But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and mention something. If you want to know why I haven't been active in a while, it's simple. Within the last year or so, I've already lost about 6 or so people in my life, one of which was my grandmother. I lost my cousin, which was her sister's daughter, and just a week and a half ago, lost my aunt, who was the pastor of our church. Now, I'm not telling you that because, it's relevant to what I'm about to discuss today. I'm telling you that is the reason why Dark Cancer, your buddy here, Gentrics, has gone silent. But don't let that keep you going, keep you barred. We're going to step forward and move out of that. But I want to go ahead and bring it up because I want to discuss one little thing. Loss. The impact of loss for each person is different based off of the emotional value that person has. Everybody has a certain limit of how much loss that they can take to the limit of how much they can handle before they intensely lose it. Some people can handle it in small doses. Some people can handle it in larger quantities and capacities. Some people can't handle it at all. Each person's different. And in that regard, depending on what the occurrence is based off of the connection you have with you and that other person. Like for me, I've lost about 6 family members within the last year, all of which weren't anyone far or distant. They're all really close relatives. Like, I lost my grandma. I was really close with my grandma. I used to visit her when we came back to Houston once every week if I could help it, and spend the night sometimes when I just didn't feel like driving back home while I was working overnight. This is an occurrence. It's a regular occurrence for me, or it was, until she passed last year. You can imagine how everyone else felt. When she died and passed, there was a lot of tears shed by a lot of people, except for yours truly. I'm not saying this to make myself sound better or heartless. It's just that I don't know what it is or how the effect works for certain people. But for me, a person who's not emotionally minded, I'm not bound by that. Certain things seem to tie my emotions to my actions more so than anything else. And with each person, I believe that same fact is true. If you're a person who leans more heavily on your emotions, then impacts like this and other effects like this, when someone passes or something happens or something goes wrong, you're going to be more inclined to react more in an emotional note than more of a rational effect. Each person has this similar, I wouldn't say effigy about how they perform their actions and what they go about doing in a day-to-day effect. Some people, it's more effective to try to act more logically, but at the same time, acting that way and being that way are two different things. You can say you're a logical person. You can say that you think more effectively, more emotionally, but this isn't true. For you to essentially think more logically and be logic-minded despite whatever happens, you have to be able to innately not only disregard your own emotions, but temporarily shut them down long enough to do what you have to do. This is a quality I know most men have, but recently in the current generation are unable to use. And I say that under the guise of, you're supposed to be a man, you have to show that you're strong, you can't cry in front of a woman, that whole masculinity thing. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm not saying that men should be that way. It's actually a bad thing, because not being able to express your emotions at all speaking from experience because I'm unable to do so, makes it hard for people to understand you, your actions, and what you're trying to do. Now, that's coming from the side of a person who, like me, in my situation, I'm unable to display my emotions freely. I have to have something to basically force it out of me, or have my girlfriend constantly get on my last everlasting nerve to the point where I have to show some type of emotion, even if it's the wrong thing entirely. Is this a trait that everybody should have and be able to use? Yes, women should be able to use this ability too. They should be able to suppress their emotions to think as rationally as possible, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of how mad or pissed off they are. But at the same time, the opposite is true as well. Men should also be able to access their emotions and use it when they need to, but not just because, he's burning hot mad or he's pissed off that such and such slept with whoever. That's not what I'm talking about. Those are justifiable reasons to be upset or show emotion, like, oh, your mom just died. But what I'm saying is holding that in is not healthy. Okay? The more you fight your emotions, the harder it is to control them. But at the same time, if you learn what triggers each emotion, you should be at some point able to indoctrinate yourself to the point where it's a mental state to act or be a certain way on command. Is this entirely possible? Yes. Is this probable? Something that's copyable, something that people can do continuously, religiously, repetitively? No, actually it's not. Because if it was possible for people to actually do this and on a regular day-to-day basis be able to apply it to how they go about life and how they interact with other people, then it wouldn't be a problem that people have to consider or think about when it comes down to making a decision of what they want or don't want to do from a day-to-day standpoint. Let's say you work a job that really irritates the ever-living hell out of you, to the point where when you come home, let's say you have a significant other. I'm going to use my girlfriend for example. The job she has is really irritating, and it gets on her nerves. Hold that thought. Anyway, her job, for what it is that she does, like I said, she used to work for a company that's kind of like CPS. She doesn't work for CPS. Okay, so she has to deal with people on a day-to-day basis. People who have kids but don't raise their kids, don't take care of their kids, or they treat their kids wrong, or there's someone in the family that's abusive to kids, but for whatever reason, no one's doing anything. Everyone's turning a blind eye to it, or people just being stupid, or people calling in false reports. I mean, these are things that happen on a day-to-day basis, on an occurrence. Whether you have to visit someone in a jail cell, in their household, you have to inspect their house. I mean, come on. This is all standard CPS. At this point, if you don't know what CPS is, what they do, how they function, or how they work, you're living in the dark ages. Okay, it's a regular occurrence. It's a government organization that exists. My point being this: every time she comes home, she'll act like she's fine. She'll be like, "Oh, hey, love, how you doing? How you did today? Are you okay? Did you get to sleep?" She's more concerned about how I'm doing, until I turn around and say, "I'm fine, but how was your day?" Now her emotions change. Her facial expressions change. Everything drops. I start getting non-responsive answers. I start seeing her voice tone drop, as in it's like completely and utterly uninteresting. Oh, my day was fine. And then now I'm having to sit here and pick at her because I'm trying to get her to tell me what's going on. Is this normal? Should you do this? Definitely not. Do not go picking on your significant other or your partner. That's not smart. I do it because I know I can handle her response, because I know how she's going to respond. I know that if I pick at her long enough, she'll get upset and she'll finally respond to me. But see, this is me intentionally aggravating a specific nerve that I know is going to cause her to become emotional. But I know if I don't make her emotional, she won't respond to me. There's some days where I don't have to do this at all. She'll come home and I'll be like, "Hey, love, how's your day going?" And the first thing out of her mouth is, "God, today was irritating. People are freaking stupid." And then go on a rant about how her day went. This is an emotional response triggered by actions throughout the day. Usually she's pretty good at controlling herself. She's gotten better, and I praise her for that. But on the off note, there are times and places where She just can't handle it, and it's beyond even her control because she's just so infuriated. Not because she's upset, actually it's mainly because she's upset, but not because she's pissed. Mostly due to the fact that stupidity in itself, and people are stupid no matter where you go, has a volley that everybody has a tolerance for, usually a very small amount, up to a certain degree. For me, I don't tolerate stupidity around me unless I, absolutely have to, job-wise or not job-wise. But for a lot of people, their patience wears thin within the first 5 minutes, especially of meeting somebody. Just to give an example, okay? Like, let's just say you're working at a Office Depot or a Home Depot, and someone comes in wanting to get their resume printed on resume paper. But on the counter, right there next to them, is a book that says resume papers. Stuff that they can use and look through. And they still walk up to the counter and ask you, "Can I see your resume papers, please?" Why? But the app froze. Anyway. So, they're sitting right there. They ask you to see the resume papers. For whatever reason, the book's there. We both know the book is there. You see the book is there. I see the book is there. But they're still asking you because they want to see it. It's like, "Hey, can I see the resume papers? Can I see the book?" or whatever. So you being probably, like me, going to be irritated by this level of stupidity. Like, do you not see this here? Or are you just blind? Or can you not read? So my natural response, is to just pick up the book and put it in front of them. Or your response may be as irritated as you probably are at the moment. To be, it's right there in front of you. Don't you see it? Of course, this is probably not the best response, but this is typically how 85% of people are going to respond, especially when you realize that it's something so obvious and so stupid. And then the typical response for that person is, "Oh, I didn't realize it was there. Thank you." And then they look through it. Or you're going to get the Karen response. "What are you talking about? Are you saying I'm blind? Of course I knew it was here. I just wanted to make sure that this is the right one." Okay, now they're heated. But you see my point. If you're unable to control your emotions, regardless of how you feel about what people say, your responses become so abstract that they're either attacking or you're trying to defend yourself. Emotions are the most dangerous thing that a human has. I guess you could say emotions are what make us human, but at the same time, emotions is what causes a lot of problems. Humans kill other humans based off of an emotional feeling, thought, or pattern of some sort. Either you're jealous, you hate somebody, you don't like them, or you just simply want to see what it does. The only exception to this is people who are mentally out of it, who need mental help. Like, they just like watching stuff burn. They like lighting stuff on fire. They like pulling the trigger of a gun because they like hearing how it sounds. I like bowling. I like hearing pins fall when I throw a bowling ball. I wouldn't kill someone with a bowling ball, though. And a lot of these people who like lighting stuff on fire, they don't want to kill nobody. Most people don't. Most of them don't have any intent of killing anybody. They just want to light a building on fire to see, "Oh, I want to see how this building burns." That's just how they are. But you see, it's an emotional response. There's a trigger. Every emotional action that you do, there is a trigger that'll cause only add emotional responses later after I've already calculated how many different outcomes I'm going to use. I'm the typical type of guy that most people hate because I look at everything as cold hard facts. Not because, I think the world is black and white. I look at it this way because it's I guess the best way to put it for me is it's a survival instinct, more so for me than it is for other people. There are people who work in data analytics and stuff who look at data all day long, and that's how they think. And they think that the world is black and white. For me, I look at it as black or white with a gray area in the middle only when necessary as a survival tactic. This is how. But shelter is the main prerogative that I need more than eating because I just feel hungry. Then yeah, I'm gonna eat, but now I don't have anywhere to stay. But if I procure myself a place to stay first, then it'll be easier for me to get food later because I have somewhere to bring it back to and I can store it. See the thought process there? But of course, a lot of people aren't going to look at it this way. Like I said, people are prone to think with their emotions first because of how they feel or what they feel should be correct. A lot of times I get people asking me questions on, hey, what should I do about this situation? And my response is, do you want the logical answer or the emotional answer? 85% of the time, people say they want the logical answer, but in reality, they want the emotional response. They want to know that their emotions are assured that what they're doing is what they should be doing because that's what they want to do. So in this regard, hey, I just found out my girlfriend was cheating on me with this other guy, but it's not entirely her fault because she did try to resist him and he kind of forced himself on them. Of course, in that sentence, hold on, let me rephrase what I was going to say. She didn't want it, but he kind of forced himself on her. There's two things wrong with this sentence. And while she claimed that her friend or her girlfriend or whatever, or boyfriend, if it's a guy or girl, doesn't matter. You decide based off your gender or non-gender. He claimed that, he claimed that she only cheated on her, on him because she was pressured into doing so by the other person. Okay, that makes sense. Where this sentence falls apart is that she initially resisted. Okay, initially resisted. Why didn't she keep resisting? Because nowadays, and I'm not going to deny this, and I know you guys can't deny it either, women have way more power wagging around in their finger than most guys. To the point where all they have to do is scream sexual assault and a guy gets arrested. This hasn't changed. If anything, it got worse. But to each their own. That's a different topic. Okay? What I'm saying is that, within the preface of what I'm saying is that you said initially she resisted, but then was pressured into it. Okay. But now I can look at this two ways. She resisted and he forced her to do it, but you didn't say she was forced. Or I could look at it the other way. She was either drugged or she wanted to do it, but she was hesitant until he coerced her to do it. That means that the only reason she did what she did, she either intended to do it from the get-go, but just really wasn't sure until someone added an emotional backing, allowing her or creating an opportunity for her to do it. Or the other one was she was drugged. And since we have already factored out that the drugged option wasn't a possibility, it had to be the latter, which means that at some point there was some level of attraction between her and the other person, guy or girl, doesn't matter, and she was basically coerced into doing so using some type of emotional response. But had she been able to control her emotions even just a little bit more than she did before, this whole situation would have been avoided, and the guy wouldn't be sitting there distraught that his girlfriend basically cheated on him from the get-go. Of course, now I got to deal with him because, he's obviously upset. And, it's not right for people to take revenge, even if the reason is justified, because I don't want him to end up with his ass in jail just because he went and attacked the other person, male or female or trans or whatever. because he's upset because that person took his girlfriend from him or caused her to do such and such or whatever. My response to him would be, do you want the logical response or do you want the emotional response? The logical response is to just let it go and move on. The emotional response is, how do you feel about the whole situation? Do you still care for her? And if so, do you still trust her? If we gotten to this point where do you still care for her and he says yes, okay, now we're at do you trust her? Now there's a logical and an emotional response for this question too. Do you trust her? If the answer is no, walk away. If the answer is yes, do you think that you can still give her another shot? But then let's go back to the do you trust her or not? Let's say he said no. There are two options here. He could walk away. That's the logical response. The emotional response is you can still give her another chance, but now she's on a short leash. You see how that response doesn't seem right, because a lot of people are going to pick that because they don't want to let it go. And that's because they're emotionally tied to that person now. They don't think they can live without them. They don't want to live without them. They want them to still be there with them, for them, while they're there. Everything that you do will have an emotional or a logical response. How you go about it and how you decide will be based purely on what you think you should or shouldn't do. Okay? And for each person, that's a little bit different. I don't know why I got in my car. I don't know why I did that. So, but this also depends on you. You can choose to take the emotional route throughout your day. You can choose to take the logical route throughout your day. Some responses don't even have an emotional option. But this also depends on what you do and where you work. If you work in a job setting, okay, usually when you're doing something, you have multiple different options of what you can and can't do. These are logical options because you're working on the job, and these are things that you have and have not to do. However, let's say something happens at work while you're working on said project. You have option A, B, C, D, and E. But then one of your coworkers does something that makes it so that options C, D, and E are not possible. However, you can still do them, but it can cause problems. This creates an object F. So now you have A, B, C, D, E, and F. But C, D, and E are not possible because of that coworker. However, they are possible with option F, where you use an emotional response to get the job done. However, in doing so, now you made yourself a target for that person. This is a workplace experience, so you can take it how you will. But what I'm saying is, just because someone's evil where you work and what they're doing doesn't mean you have to have the emotional response of retaliation. There are some places where this is justified, but 85% of the time it's not. And I say this because if you're mainly focused on survival, let's say you like your job, okay? You really love your job, you get paid a lot, you know, your day-to-day life depends on this job, and unless you have another job lined up, you really don't want to risk it, right? So if that's the case, and you really want to keep this job, the emotional response should be the last possible option. Unless you're one of those people who love a good little bit of malicious compliance. At that point, all I can say is just make sure you cover your own butt. And if you've ever worked in fast food, then you understand covering your butt is a must. When you take the emotional response, you're always going to end up putting yourself in a position that usually creates a room for retaliation against you again. Remember, I'm pretty sure you've all heard the phrase, 2 wrongs don't make it right. And in this case, it does. But it applies mostly more to the emotional factor than the logical one. Is the logical answer usually going to be better? 85% of the time, that is true. But in a workplace environment, this only depends on where you work, who you work with, and the people type you work with. If you work with the type of people who are nitpicky about the dumbest stuff, or they're the kind of people that likes to micromanage, then the emotional response is probably the worst option. Because at this point, if you start becoming emotionally triggered by certain things, or you start doing stuff based on your own emotions, then in this case, you're just leading into the fact that they're trying to trap you, and you'll just walk right out the door, not realizing that you just fired yourself, even though they are the ones who were pulling the strings. You've turned yourself into a little puppet. If you, on the other hand, take the logical approach and just wait it out, yeah, your emotions are still going to be steaming. You're still going to be brewing like hot coffee in the morning when people are getting ready to go from a Starbucks. But if you just wait and bide your time, little by little, just watching what they're doing, taking note of everything, keeping a copy of every email, printing them out, just keeping track of everything. If you wait long enough, an opportunity will present itself, or until you have enough evidence, you can push it. Same category. I fall into the same category and I forgot what it was called. But you know, discrimination of any kind is still wrong. And see, that's the other thing I want to talk about. Since we're on the topic of emotional and analytical responses, let's talk about disability real quick, because discrimination and disabilities kind of go hand in hand. Um, you can't see, you're crippled because you have arms but you can't use them, or you don't have hands, you have nubs, or you don't have legs, or you have leg nubs. It doesn't matter what the cripple issue is. Everybody's pretty much the same in that same category. Okay. There are people out there who don't believe that other people are crippled or whatnot, because to them, okay, in their mind, and this is one of those, here's where logic is a bad thing. Like I said, every situation depends on the person. In their mind, they're thinking, oh, their body is complete from head to toe. They must be able to use their hands and feet. So if they see you sitting in a wheelchair or walking with crutches, in their mind, unless they see a cast or something that clearly displays that you're an injured person or you need those items, they're like, oh, you're not crippled, you're just faking being one. And then they try to lay out some whack logic that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make sense because if you're trying to be logical, in any sense of the word, it should make sense, right? Everything should follow a set string, a set direction. It's like when you solve a math problem. You have to start at the beginning and go to the end. Obviously, if you're going to add up something, I'm not talking about advanced math, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. If you add 4 plus 4, you get 8. You're not going to add 4 plus 4 and get 12. That doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of the times when I hear these stories, it's a person saying, oh, you're not crippled or you're not handicapped. You have both your legs and hands, so you should be able to walk. Why are you sitting in that wheelchair? Give it to someone who needs it. Or in parking space areas, there are now parking spaces for family with children where adults or moms or dads who have little ones who need to get out quickly to get to the store to get what they need and leave, like infants or whatever, those spaces are available. Some stores have them, some Walmart, some Kroger's. I think they call them infant. What's the word for moms that are carrying, or for parents who have little bitty kids or babies or whatever? They're in the very, very front of the store. Okay, usually there's like 1 or 2 spaces specified for that. It's becoming more of an occurrence now than it used to be, but it's there. And there are people who have complained that watching, and this is the one that got on my nerves the other day, so this is my emotional response to this. A dad got out with his I think he had an 8-month-old child and a 1-year-old, and he parked in that space, and he was getting ready to leave, and this lady, I don't know out of where, came out of nowhere and started fussing at him for parking in that space, saying it's for women with children, even though the sign doesn't clearly say that. It says customers with kids. That's what the sign said. And complained that he was parking in that space illegally, and that he needed to move because it was for people like her who have 3 kids in her car, all of which are of the age range between 8 and 12. Which, when you consider this, yeah, she has kids, but does she really need to be parked that far in the front? No, she really doesn't, because everybody's old enough to be able to walk on their own. I can see the 8-year-old maybe needing to walk next to her mom, but she's not in dire need of that parking space. You see what I'm saying? It's just a level of entitlement at this point. She tried to declare that the space was valid for him using logic based off of her emotions. This is something that you should never do. If you're going to apply logic to something, you first need to eliminate the emotional factor. Because as soon as your emotions start to inflict on your logic of what you're trying to create, whatever it is, it skews your logic, because you're trying to prove the point that you're right. And being 85% of the time, being right is not the best answer. Obviously, in relationships, this is applied because what was the phrase years ago that used to be true? Happy wife, happy life. Obviously, being rational in thought when that thought process was still legit and believable, before everyone decided that they were going to be equal, and regardless of how the stands work, or the fact that no one's really getting married anymore nowadays out of fear or just lack of commitment, but whatever. Under the guise of happy wife, happy life, the understanding is that as long as she's happy, regardless of how she feels, or regardless of how the guy feels, which I'm going to be honest with you, 85% of the time, he feels like crap, and I've watched it happen. As long as she's happy, he gets to have a good day. If we're going to talk about the fairity of how logic works, that whole ideology is skewed. Because that means that as long as it's emotional based, as long as her emotions are intact, is basically what it's saying. However she felt that day, he gets to have a good day. Or nowadays, if that still is true, she gets to have a good day, because, you can have a woman-on-woman marriage or whatever. You can't apply logic to this. But if you listen to the logic behind the whole thought process of how it's supposed to work, it shouldn't work, because that's not fair. Emotions and logic cannot be applied together if fairity is an issue, because it doesn't work that way. If you want a fair household where everybody's an equal opportunity employer of the way the rules work, then it has to be applied to both sides. It cannot be applied to only one side. If you've ever done math or ever done any form of algebra, you know that when you solve an equation, both sides have to be equal for it to be a balanced equation. And that's the only way it works. Otherwise, you're solving it like a regular math problem, like 2 + 2 is 4. So when it comes to relationships, if you want it to be equal and fair, under the guise that, you're still using the happy wife, happy life scenario, then that means that it needs to be the same in reverse as well. She shouldn't be happy and satisfied if her man isn't happy or satisfied, or a woman if she's married to a female. I'm not going to keep specifying that every time, okay? I'm just going to say that once, that I don't care what the orientation is or who you're married to. I'm just using the traditional sense because it's the easiest one I can reference at the moment. and it's less stuff to say every single time. Okay, but my point is this. If it's going to be fair for him, then she has to also contribute as well. Remember, relationships are two-sided. We don't live in the time frame anymore where the guy just goes to work and the lady stays home as a homemaker. That's not possible anymore, especially now, because people now have to get 2 or 3 jobs or get paid minimum, hear me, minimum $55 an hour or more just to be able to afford a regular apartment that has 1 or 2 bedrooms. Even an efficiency now starts out minimum $350. That's unheard of. So my point being this, if the household is to work and both partners are supposed to contribute, then that means that both partners' happiness should depend on each other, not one or the other. It would be different if the wife stayed home in this scenario. But if she's working just like he is, then that whole philosophy of her being happy so he's happy isn't true anymore. It can't be true, because that means that they both have to be happy to some extent. She can't come home complaining about how bad her day was and expect him to understand and not ask him how his day was. That's not fair, because that means that she comes home to drop her heavy load on him. He still has his heavy load. He's unable to talk to her about it because one of 2 reasons. Either he's being macho and trying to be a man about it, which is not helpful because that means it's going to emotionally tear him apart. This creates stress, which is why a lot of guys' hairs turn white before women's do, unless they have kids, which is a whole nother issue, or their lifestyle's already stressful, so there's that. And it just puts more emotional strain on him. And since guys aren't ones to talk about their emotions, except, nowadays, they're not going to say anything. They're just going to sit there quietly because that's how it was. Especially for millennials. If you're a millennial in this audience, you already understand this. You're going to work yourself to the bone, not think nothing about it, and just do what you have to do to survive. And it's just how it was. It still kind of is that way now. It's just a lot worse. But it's the general consensus of the thought. It's something that has been this way for years, and they're trying to change the dynamic. And I'm happy they're trying to change the dynamic. But in the response to them trying to change the dynamic, they're also making an environment that's not healthy or safe for anyone to live in. Also, keep in mind that now that the family aspect has been taken to the point where women and their husbands, or women and their women, or husbands and their husbands, I don't know, whatever works for you, are now both working. Now, ask yourself this, since we're talking about emotional and logical answers, how is this going to affect the kid, and is it healthy for the child? How's it going to affect the kid? It's going to affect the kid on an emotional note, because one, neither parent is present enough to give them the love and attention and affection they need to help them grow. Is this healthy for the kid? No, it's not. And it never will be unless one of them either gives in and spends more time with the kid, or they make a more proactive choice to be more involved in his life, regardless of the fact that neither one of them are home. Now, here's the thing. If the kid is in school during the day, it's perfectly fine for both husband and wife to be at work, obviously. But then there's the other fact. You got to remember that you're married, so your actions that you do when you're out in the workforce affect how your home life is going to be. The more open you are with people on the outside, the more of an open chance it creates for them to attack your home life, especially if they don't like you, or they don't like your husband, or they don't like your kid. And the more information they have about you and your family, the more of an opportunity or a chance it gives them to come after you. The more appropriate response here would be to just not do anything. Just go to work, be friendly, but keep your home life out of it. A lot of people tend to get emotional. They tend to think about, oh, I heard about that, and start talking about family life and talking about their home situations regarding that said topic, to the point where, oh, now I have a friend at work, I can talk to them about anything. How do you know you have a friend at work? You don't know that. People tend to create emotional connections with other people because they want to get a response out of them. They want to get an action out of them. They want them to make them do something. I've often heard the phrase that, oh, my girlfriend's just doing that because she wants to get a rise out of me. And my response to this is this. If you know she's doing that to get a rise out of you, why haven't you put a stop to it? You can't sit here and tell me that that's just how she is. I can't make her stop. Yes, you can. Actually, as a matter of fact, you can. You can make anybody who's doing you wrong stop at any time, or you can just walk away. It's as simple as that. You don't have to sit there and take it. That's bullying, essentially by its definition. Again, utilizing a person's emotional response to trigger a certain action and cause them to do or be a certain way. My thing is this: if someone is doing something that they're hurting you, okay? If they're doing something and it's hurting you, and it's causing you to either be upset, sad, or dismembered in some way mentally because of what they're doing, that means they're not attacking you, they're attacking your emotions. They're trying to get you to mentally break. Okay? And while mentally breaking someone is not a healthy discourse, it is more than likely a way of getting people to do whatever they want. People who market a lot of stuff, they focus on this aspect, which is why years ago, before we got to the point where we are now, people were afraid of people who went to the store and marketed things, especially people who did door-to-door sales, for obvious reasons. Because they focused on hitting the woman at home while the guy was at work. And in this regard, by targeting the woman at home, they don't know what the issue is, but they have a manager there who they task with trying to figure out what the problem is and resolve it. Let's say instead of solving the problem, the manager decides to cut everyone's overtime, but then makes them do the same amount of work. Of course, this isn't going to sit well with anybody, and a lot of people are going to protest, but how do you think he's going to respond? He's like, oh, well, if you don't like it, you can just go ahead and quit. I can replace you. This is an attack on your emotional state, because mentally you're like, oh, yeah, I can get another job. But because you're already invested in this company, you're already in a certain position where you're making a decent amount of money, you're going to retract and not fight back because you don't want to lose your job. Now, if you're a person who has a stronger will, this isn't going to affect you. And that's a whole different topic on its own. But let me go ahead and point out that a person's emotional state and the level of their ability to control it is based off of that person's willpower. A lot of people start off with a high amount of willpower and self-esteem. But over time, especially when going through public school, that self-esteem can either go up or down based off of how you interact with other people. Usually the people who are in school who've been bullied or have to suffer the worst, usually when they get out, usually their self-esteem isn't exactly high, but their willpower to do what they can to survive will be. So they're able to endure a lot more because in their mind, they endured worse when they were younger. But as for the ones who didn't have to endure this crap, let's say you had that bully football player jock that constantly beats you down. Well, now he's in that position where he's under you, you're the nerd in charge, and you're like, hey, if you don't get your act together, I'm going to have to fire you. Okay, well, now he's in a sense of fear and panic because in his mind, oh shit, I need this job. I can't get anything else because I can't play football anymore because let's just say he tore his ACL and he can't run no more. Now he's in the position of fear because his self-esteem and willpower to fight back to make sure he keeps his job is gone. Now he's like, okay, yes, sir, I'll do as you say because I want to keep my job. The weight of emotions on a person's psyche and how they react and do things is based off of the amount of willpower and amount of self-confidence that a person has. If they don't have any, then it's going to be easier for them to subject to whoever the stronger power is. This is why a lot of countries are easy to take over, and a lot of these monarchs don't have to go through and kill a lot of people. They just have to kill significant people that people consider idolized, which is not a good thing, biblically and all that. And then take control of everybody and point guns at everyone that says, hey, if you disobey me, I'll just kill you. We both know he's not going to do it because then he doesn't have any people to rule over. But the people standing there don't realize that. In their mind, they're afraid because they just watched a guy that they highly respected get shut down in front of them. It's a mental game. They intentionally trick you into thinking that they're going to do something when they're not. It's how robbers are able to get away with robbing people. They point a gun in your face. It could be a fake gun. You don't know that. They can point a gun in your face and say, give me all the cash in your register. You're going to do it. Not because policy says to do it, but because you don't want to get shot in the face. And while this sounds like, oh, this is just common sense, people are going to do this regardless. No, it's a fear tactic. But yeah, that's the general idea. The general sense between logic and emotional response. People I'm not going through research papers and looking this stuff up online and doing scientific research. I don't have to. The work's already done. And the very proof that all of this exists is under the guise of everyday life. We all go through it, we all see it, we all interact with it. Unfortunately, in my case, I don't have the ability to use my emotions like everybody else. But because I understand the basic concept of what an emotion is and how most of them work, that same marketing tactic I can use to get my way by leveraging people to do what I want them to do, but in the position of forcing them, making them think that what they're trying to do is their idea and not mine. So you can go back and listen to them later if you're not able to listen to it on this platform, on Food for Thought by Dark Cancer Productions. But like I said, every day is a different day. How we go about what we do every day is what makes our day more progressive. How you feel about that day, how you think your day is going to go, how you steel yourself to handle that day, and how you steel yourself to handle all that's happening. Every little thing matters. You may not think so. You may not act so. You may think, oh, I just wake up every morning and I go to work. But what you need to know is that if you're married and you have a partner, right? How you start that day with your partner determines how your partner's day is going to play out, and if they're going to be able to steel themselves to go about the day, regardless of what's going to come and beat them down to the ground. Remember, even if you're a fighter, you can handle this emotional stress from bullies and other people pushing you and backing you into a corner. The other person may not be able to. And don't be so self-conscious that you only think about defending yourself. There are people out there who need help, not because they're in danger, not because they're going to get hurt, not because they lack they lack the skill to do anything. No, they're going to need your help because, like I said, not everybody has the willpower. Not everybody has that same mental fortitude. Obviously, not everyone is like me who doesn't have the emotional thought processes at all. I'm a special case, one of the few. Now, there are times I wish I could use my emotions like other people because then I could transcribe my emotions better and explain them to people, but I can't. Half the time, I don't know how I feel about a topic. Like, things that should make me mad, I'm just slightly irritated by, or I just don't care. I've watched 6 family members die, and I have yet to cry or feel sad about any of them. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there listening to me right now are going to be like, that ain't normal. Because I know my girlfriend told me it wasn't normal. She never explained why it wasn't normal. I still don't know why that's not normal. A lot of people will tell me, oh, everyone just kind of, grieves differently. That may be, but that would mean that I'm in a state of grief, and I'm not. If you understand where I'm coming from. Whether physically, emotionally, logically, or verbally. Obviously, we can't do it written on paper because paper can't tell you how a person feels, just what they're thinking. And the same goes for text messages. Actually, before I go, let me go ahead and hit on that real quick. Text messaging someone how you feel is a bad idea from the get-go. Messages cannot survey how you feel, and while emojis give a temporary simulation, they can also be mistranslated depending on the person that they're being sent to. And unless that person knows you well enough, they're not going to understand what you're saying. It's like a person who's replying to someone and they just said okay, or if they say just K. If you say okay, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying, the person's going to be like, all right. But if you just reply K, it just sounds like you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Like you're tuning them out. And that's going to irritate somebody. A lot of people don't like that response. Just going ahead and throwing that out there. Trust me, I learned it the hard way from one of my exes. She hated when I responded with the word K or KK. Because in her eyes, in her mind, I'm just ignoring her message. So, but like I said, if you have any questions, concerns, or whatever, hit me up on here on Wisdom, ask your questions, I will answer them. Or I'll turn them into a topic for next time we can discuss a little bit more. Or if you want to hear some of the other podcasts I cover that I do over educational topics and things that people should or should not know,